I've taken a few days to take in the Kimmel situation, and it seems to me like what I'm observing is that the right is really missing the point. Yes, the left has been insufferable on free speech for many years.
Deplatforming works, and it is important. And there you go. Good things can happen.
But this is the good news. The left cares about free speech again. We should be happy. Let's forgive them. Not all of them did the anti-free speech thing that we all suffered through in the early 2020. 2020 to 2022 was a pretty rough time speech-wise, and even before that. But that's the thing. Let's welcome them back. The left cares about free speech again. Welcome. Let's prepare the fatted calf and welcome home the prodigal side, who now remembers why free speech is important. And look, if you're on the right, you probably are missing the reality that this isn't great. It isn't great that Trump, when Colbert got let go, Trump was like, Kimmel's next. And then his appointee is talking about, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. And here, let me play a clip of a more left-leaning podcast on this.
Nexstar and Sinclair, which own ABC affiliate networks, said they would preempt Kimmel's show until he apologized. And Sinclair even demanded a meaningful personal donation to the Kirk family and Turning Point USA. And this happened a few hours after FCC Chair Brendan Carr went on the Benny Johnson show.
And they have a license granted by us at the FCC, and that comes with it an obligation to operate in the public interest. And we can get into some ways that we've been trying to reinvigorate the public interest and some changes that we've seen. But frankly, when you see stuff like this, I mean, look, we can do this the easy way or the hard way.
The demand for him to donate to this conservative podcasters political group is so bizarre.
I really don't like how everyone keeps saying podcaster in this dismissive way, this derogatory way. First of all, it's a little bit gross sometimes. I've heard someone in real life. This was September 12th, I would say. I overheard a conversation where a woman, because she's speaking in front of multiple people, assuming that everyone would share her politics. But she's like, can you believe America right now? This is crazy how America is. People are mourning a podcaster. This is this derision. And it's so weird because it keeps coming from people who are podcasters. Are these four people not podcasters? I mean, they might be other things as well, but so is Charlie Kirk. It just everything's a podcast now, guys. But we need to stop acting like it's 2006 and podcasts were a dorky thing weird people did. Even all of us should have gotten into it as early as possible. Right? I wish I had started a long time ago, sort of. I might be a totally crazy person by now if I had, so maybe it's good that I hadn't. But podcasts are where it's at. This is what gets the reach. Podcasts are what are reaching more people. Podcasts have more influence than a lot of these late night shows. So it's just so weird for everyone to keep doing this podcaster thing. But yeah, so this is not great. This whole telling people they got to donate to your cause, that was always happening with the BLM stuff. So if you're on the right and you didn't like it back then, let's not circle the drain, and everyone just keeps being like, well, that side did it worse, so we're going to do it, and we'll overreach because they overreached. Let's not. Let's just go, all right, you're right, we shouldn't be doing this. And anyway, who's even loyal to Trump? I get it if you're more conservative, and I get it if you find Trump entertaining. I find him entertaining. I find him, whatever. I'm not really making an anti-Trump thing either. It's just, I'm just not on the side of politicians. I think it makes sense to be more conservative, to be more liberal. Those things make sense. Thinking that any of these politicians really have our interest in mind and heart, doesn't seem like that to me on either side. I mean, every now and then someone comes along and I go, wow, that person sounds great. And then they turn out to be a CIA agent or they sell their soul to the devil at some point. So again, people on the right, anytime Trump does something that the left complains about, imagine Biden had done it and see if he would like that. Okay, so let's not be supportive of Trump's appointees being like, I should hate to see if anything would happen to you. What is it the gangsters say? I would hate to hear that anything happened to you. Something like that. And I get it. It is annoying. It's really hard not to take our feelings out on the left when, like, that 2020 to 2022 era was really gross in terms of free speech. They really didn't seem to care at all. We learned from the Twitter files that the FBI, the DHS, and the White House were, like, suppressing stories, were kind of forcing social media platforms to take stories down. They suppressed Hunter Biden's laptop story completely. I mean, people were losing their entire Twitter accounts for saying things that, like, are so innocuous, like for saying that maybe COVID leaked out of the lab, which then, you know, every now and then there would be another update being like, well, we're not really sure it didn't. I mean, you know, there's a decent chance it did eventually, you know, but no, not a lot of apologies were issued for all the people who were villainized and censored and deplatformed for that sort of stuff, censured for that sort of stuff. When a lot of us were upset about people losing their Twitter platforms for saying a man can never be a woman, or for using a pronoun that matched sex versus, you know, that matched original natal sex instead of someone's gender identity, then, you know, we were told, well, this is a private company, so that's fine. That was the answer from the left. And I mean, not just online, but people I knew in real life a lot were just very clear, like, whatever, we think they should be deplatformed. The thing is, like, deplatforming Kimmel from ABC, like, yeah, I don't like it. I don't like that Trump has this list, although it is kind of funny because these people are really not very funny. We'll get to that. But I don't like that Trump has a list. I don't like that his FCC guy is strong-arming people. But also, it's like, you know, Kimmel, like, you're not really being censored. Like, you could just start a podcast. Like, you could get way more eyeballs on what you're doing, and certainly younger ones, if you're on YouTube, TikTok, Spotify. I bet Rogan would have you on his podcast, and you could kickstart if that didn't lose you all your friends in the liberal circles. I don't know. But you know what I mean? It's like, you're not really being, especially if you still believe in the argument that getting kicked off of Twitter was not losing your free speech, then, like, getting kicked off of a TV show that increasingly few, anyway, a decreasing amount of people watch. It's like just a handful of old people were watching it. And so to get kicked off of that, like, you are being censored, but you could also rise up stronger and get more people to hear you have anything to say, which that's the thing. Like, maybe Kimmel and maybe Colbert do have a lot to say, but they're actually quite censored in what they can say on those TV shows. You know, those big networks are very censorious, very particular about what you can say. So maybe there's more that they could say uncensored by the TV networks if they just went and started their own podcast. Because that's the thing. I mean, it's cute. You know, the FCC's like, we have these licenses we give out, and we can make sure that we're policing. Well, you can't really police the podcasts. So it feels to me like free speech is alive and well. Whenever everyone's crying about this, like, authoritarian overreach, I'm like, I don't know. I don't think they can stop us from talking. Not without really cracking it. Like, if they start really cracking down on the internet, that's when I'll be scared. Now let's talk about the Jimmy Kimmel segment in question. First of all, this is what he said.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them, and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half-staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty.
Yes. Okay. He's at the fourth stage of grief, construction. There's demolition, construction. This is not how an adult grieves the murder of someone he called a friend. This is how a 4-year-old mourns a goldfish, okay? And it didn't just happen once.
When I heard it, I was in the midst of, building a great, for 150 years, they've wanted a ballroom at the White House, right? They don't have a ballroom. They have to use tents on the lawn for President Xi when he comes over. If it rains, it's a wipeout. And so I was with the architects that would design. It's going to be incredible. And they came in, they said, Charlie Kirk is dead. I didn't know what they meant. I said, what do you mean dead? Charlie Kirk was shot. And they thought he was dead because it was so horrific, And I said, dead.
And then we installed the most beautiful chandelier, sconces you wouldn't believe. There's something wrong with them. There really is. I mean, who thinks like that?
Let's go through this part about the grieving, because I do wonder if it's possible Trump was more offended about the grieving bit than the bit about the shooter, Kimmel's characterization of the shooter. This is just one of those creepy. This is why I don't like late night. It's hard for me to defend these people, especially because they're not funny. I don't think I've ever actually seen Kimmel be funny, but like I didn't watch a lot of his old stuff. I've just kind of heard about the Man Show. It doesn't sound great, and then like he became like a respectable Tonight Show liberal. I don't know. When I have tuned in, I've listened. I'd never watched much, if any, Kimmel before this, and I've watched a few segments now, and it's like, okay, so it's just kind of like a liberal circle jerk. Yeah, it's hard for me to mourn these late night shows. It does seem weird for them to just be kind of constantly anti-Trump and really propagandists, because that's what's strange about it. Like when you start looking into a lot of the things that happen in these monologues, you're like, well, it's just real distortion of what happened. We'll get to what he said about the shooter's potential affiliations, but this part about Trump not grieving, it's like, okay, I didn't go back and find whatever that clip is that he found that he first played about him pointing to their new ballroom, but then when he says, look, he's always doing it, he shows another clip of him starting to talk. He's talking about the moment that he found out Charlie Kirk was killed, and he was in the middle of doing that kind of stuff, and then he finds out he's killed, and it's like, well, that's clearly not the end of the clip. Like, he's like, why don't we just watch the end of the clip?
I said, what do you mean dead? Charlie Kirk was shot. And they thought he was dead because it was so horrific, And I said, dead? And it was like, I just told these people, get out, just go, you got it. This is the worst thing. This was so bad for our country. But sometimes out of really bad things can happen that can be good.
Mr. President, we got the news conference.
He is. You take the news conference. Yeah. He's a great man, and he's going to be more important because of what happened.
It's just very strange to be watching this whole. If you watch the whole Fox News segment, as I did to prepare for this video, he spends a lot of time in that video saying heartfelt things about Charlie Kirk, obviously, and talking about how much his son loved him and looked up to him, and he kind of thought of him as a son to some extent. I mean, it was just like super weird to paint him out to be grieving like a toddler grieves a goldfish.
This is not how an adult grieves the murder of someone he called a friend. This is how a 4-year-old mourns a goldfish.
It's really weird. So then I started watching some more news, more leftist, just leftist leaning podcasts talk about, I guess they're making this argument that Kimmel didn't really say that the guy was MAGA, which let's listen to what they say.
But what is the actual sentence that they're pretending to be outraged by?
They're pretending that Jimmy Kimmel said that the shooter was MAGA, which is not what he said. The people who've been yelling for a week that quotes have been taken out of context, Charlie Kirk quotes have been taken out of context, are saying that this means that he said it was the kid was MAGA.
Okay, and let's go back and listen to what Kimmel said, which I promise you, I've watched this clip multiple times. I've watched before this clip. I've watched after this clip. There's no other context that you're missing. So let's watch this clip.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
I can see how you can say he didn't technically say he was MAGA. He said the MAGA people are desperately trying to attempt to show that he was not MAGA. But doesn't that wording pretty much imply that Kimmel thinks he is MAGA?
With the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them.
Because you wouldn't have to desperately try to I mean, maybe I'm mishearing things a little bit, but I do remember that in that day or two before this Kimmel episode came out, that's what I was hearing a lot of leftist people say, is that he was definitely MAGA. The shooter was actually MAGA. It was actually a red team guy, or was actually an extreme right. It was a political, like a right side political extremist. In fact, here's a clip.
In the wake of Charlie's murder, there was an incredible amount of angry discourse from the right, blaming the Democrats, blaming liberals, saying, you're the reason this happened. Only to find out, surprise, 22-year-old white dude, loved guns, raised by two parents, lived in a good home. Dad is a minister, also a sheriff. Didn't check any of them boxes y'all thought he would check, did he?
It's wild that she thinks that means that list of things means that this guy was definitely a Republican or whatever on the right, because it doesn't show that. I mean, this would be like if you were trying to decide whether someone was a man or a woman, and you had access to his mom's diary talking about her son, and then you were like, okay, but this person wears lipstick and carries a purse and was raised by two women. So the point is, it was a thing on the left for a couple of days where they were desperately trying to paint the shooter as not having leftist ideology, that it had nothing to do with this trans girlfriend, which, look, I don't know. I've heard all kinds of hypotheses about some people of various sides potentially funding the assassination, of all of this being nonsense. I mean, certainly the text chain that the CIA or whoever, FBI, whoever it was, seems like something the CIA would have given us. The text chain that they told us was between the shooter and his trans girlfriend seemed obviously fake to everyone. So, I don't know, but that was a thing. So it's just so weird to hear people on the left now being like, he wasn't saying he was MAGA. He was saying maybe he wasn't not MAGA. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to turn out. We're going to have all kinds of surprises potentially about who this Tyler Robinson, right? I keep getting him confused with the Tommy Robinson guy in the UK. Anyway, who knows? Maybe it'll turn out it wasn't Tyler Robinson. Maybe it'll turn out Tyler Robinson's, what would be a good twist? Tyler Robinson's Venezuelan gang member. Anyway, who knows? Who knows what we'll find out in the future. But I will say, the one thing I think we can all agree on, and I give it to Kimmel for including this little segment.
The royals are expected to greet the president and first lady tomorrow, but some clever Brits are already rolling out, I wouldn't call it a red carpet exactly, but rather a King Kong-sized photo of Trump with his buddy Jeffrey Epstein. This is right outside Windsor Castle.
And in fact, from all the clips that I've seen of Kimmel that have come out in the last several days, he talks about Epstein a lot. And, the day Kirk was killed, almost all Republicans, except for two of them, voted to not make sure the Epstein files got immediately released. Maybe part of why Trump doesn't want Kimmel and Colbert on TV is because he doesn't want all the boomers being constantly reminded about Epstein. That makes some sense to me. Anyway, I don't like it. I don't like that he's pressuring. I don't like that Trump or his appointees are putting pressure on TV platforms and interfering in deals. It's not great. Everyone should be against it. But also, I see the right's point that Kimmel's show was unfunny and largely just anti-Trump propaganda. Here's a fun little. Let's just watch. So the Monday episode's the one he supposedly got suspended for, but here's a little bit of Tuesday's episode, just so you can see what Kimmel was able to do with that team of writers.
It is unseasonably sweltering here in Los Angeles. It's hot, right, Guillermo?
Yeah, mucho caliente, mucho hot.
That means, for our bilingual viewers, that means it's hot.
It's hot, mucho caliente, yes.
Right. But even though the air is thick with humidity, we can breathe a little easier tonight because Donald Trump is out of the country. He is. Our parents left the house. Trump is in the UK, or as he has to be reminded not to call it, the UCK. Paddington Unbearable is in England for an official visit with the royal family. Wait till he finds out tea time has nothing to do with golf. He's going to be very upset.
Oh, and here's another little tiny moment from Tuesday's episode. And before I play that, I will say thank you so much to all the people who have subscribed to me. Last I looked, I was at 907 subscribers, which makes me very happy and excited. Of course, at 1,000, I can get monetized. Although then I'll start having to figure out all the YouTube rules, which feels like it sucks. But I'm excited to be almost there, and excited to hopefully reach 1,000 soon. I've been running away from doing YouTube for a long time. I did shrooms in like 2008 and almost started YouTubing, and then I ran away from it for a long, long time. So now I did something much easier, which is being a stand-up comedian, and that hasn't scared me in many years. So now I have to do something that scares me again, which is really trying to build a following on YouTube, because I have a lot to say. Like right now I'm talking about this stuff because it's topical, but I have a lot I really want to talk to y'all about. So thank you for joining me and having some conversations. I'm going to try to be funnier, especially as I get used to this. I'm like kind of feel a little out of it right now recording, but I am, but I also just, I'm a sincere person, and I'm a nerd. I read a lot. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I talk to tons of people in real life, and I listen to both sides and all sides, and I try to do some critical thinking of my own. And I see what's out there in the landscape of the conversation, and I don't like a lot of it. So I want to try to elevate that conversation, and I really appreciate all of y'all's support. And with that, here's one more little tidbit from Jimmy Kimmel, R.I.P.
Boy, what a difference an election makes. 2 years ago, these meatheads couldn't shut up about the First Amendment. Now they want to skip right to the second.